Hey there, this is the Crit for Assignment 2, in which you were to take a letter form of your choice, a serif letter form of your choice, and it didn't have to relate to your name whatsoever, and use it as a shape that has a variety of edge types, and design it in a 6x9 panel. The letter form itself needed to be 10 inches tall to give you ability to proportion the space in the design in a way that it will facilitate the second panel, the center panel, and then the first and second panel will facilitate what happens in the third panel. So we're going to look at a few of these. First of all, we have a D, definitely, and there's a slight upper right to lower left diagonal axis. And it does have a serif. It is slightly cropped down here. Now, if this were a more severe axis, say something that was doing more like this, it might give, or it would give, a different idea of the space, but give different options for the second panel because we're taking those negative shapes and creating the second design out of them. So here we've got the white, which is here, and this is here, and then this long piece is here, and then we have the two smaller pieces. So this is creating a design that has a strong figure ground separation, just like the first design. And we're reading this as black on a white ground, just like this. And one of the reasons we're reading this as black figure or black shapes on a white background is how the white is proportioned. The white is basically framing everything. There's white all around. So the third panel is the composite, or the blend of the first panel with the second panel. That gives us the basis for the third. And in the third, you were to have three different shape relationships, and you were to achieve flattened space, or figure ground ambiguity, which results in equivocal space. And equivocal is equal vocal, so speaking equally, speaking at the same time. So in the third panel, we're looking for those shape relationships, and we definitely have a sense of overlap right in here. We do have a sense of transparency, where the white seems to overlap the dark gray and become the light gray. We have a sense of division, so we had to have an overlap, a transparency, and a division. And you had to have at least one instance of each of those three. And the reason for that is to, first of all, apply your understanding of shape relationships, because they are all around us, so you're able to recognize what's going on when you're looking at something. And at the same time, to understand space, flat space versus volumetric illusion. So within this third panel, it is very difficult to determine if there is a figure and there's a ground. Obviously, where things seem to overlap, like the darker shapes here overlap the white, there is a figure ground relationship, but when we look at the totality of the design, there is a lack of separation. We cannot perceive within the whole design a sense of a figure ground relationship in the same way that we can here and here. One question I do have is the choice to take this pretty much straight across when this is dipping down and this is dipping up. And then we've gone straight across over here, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. Obviously this is this, but where are we getting this? From here? So there's some things that look like they may have been slightly modified in the third panel, because certain things just don't make sense down here. And this little black-white area below the, basically the straight, almost straight horizontal, looks like it's underneath or behind, or it's a separate little area that we don't have set up here or here. So we've got a very strong E. It is not a serif, it's a sans serif. It doesn't have the little feet or the ears on it. So that in itself is not the right choice. What we wanted to do was choose a letter form that was a serif to give you some interesting shape options where we have a straight into a curve, or we have some different angles going on. And so this is what we would call a grotesque or a sans serif. It is dividing the space in an interesting manner, and we do have the larger shape and the smaller shape, and they are laid out here. So this actually is a reversal for us. So we can read this as black figure on a white background, or we can read this as white figure on a black background. We will see either or. We won't see both at the same time. So we can see the white on the black or the black on the white. And one of the reasons we're seeing that, and this is not a straight up figure ground separation, because of how the color is distributed, the black and white is distributed within the design. Where we get to the second panel, this is very clearly figure ground separation, the black figure on the white ground. Now we have the white kind of surrounding everything, and the black figure, the black color, is a smaller proportion of the entire design area. So the composite within the third panel, taking this and this to equal this, seems like it is holding true. It's holding the integrity of this plus this equaling this. And then what we're doing is trying to distribute the four colors in a way that it will equivocate space, or we have that ambiguity, and also to use the three shape relationships that we had to use. So there's a sense here that this gray is a little bit transparent. It's overlapping the white and therefore becomes a lighter gray, so that's our transparency. We have a sense of division here, going from the white to the black to the gray to the black to the white. We do have a sense of overlap, the black here and the black here against the white. Up top, the space is equivocated. Down below, it's really not. We have a very strong figure ground separation where the darker colors are figure and the white is ground, and that kind of starts here and comes all the way down. And to mitigate that, we would need a redistribution of color. So we can see that the choices made up front are going to affect the future choices down the road. A couple of other things, and I'm just going to do this. I don't think that this is an issue of how the thing was photographed. This doesn't look like a right angle corner. Where this appears more true to a 90-degree angle, still slightly off. Given the idea that maybe this whole thing is tilted a little bit on camera, there's certain things that are a little bit forgivable, but the basically the idea, clear those guides, is that this distance from here to here appears to be longer than the distance from here to here, meaning this is not a right angle up here. And that speaks to care, that speaks to quality, that speaks to craft, that speaks to professionalism. So the paper has been crafted fairly well with a good deal of attention and care to how things are cut and how things fit together, and done very well. But then we have this thing going on up here because this is definitely taller. I'll just do this. Kind of take this as a little bit of a measurement. So take care with everything. If your work is just okay, it's fine, it's okay, but you have a lot more competition because a lot of people default to it's just okay, it's just good enough. As you strive for excellence, as you strive to level up, you rise above, you lift yourself out of the crowd of just okay into high quality, high level both in terms of craft and in terms of design problem solving. You have less competition. You are more valuable as a designer. So if you are future focused, if you are in this program, you're going through this master's program because you have an ideal goal, an ideal future out there in front of you, think about how you want that to look and start working on that now. Start making the effort now so that it's effortless later on. You don't even have to think about it. First of all, the J is not 10 inches tall from this distance to the bottom of the bowl on the J, because if this is 9 inches tall, this distance will not exceed this. So we're already out of spec. This is also not a serif. J would actually do this sort of thing and would probably come in a little more like this if it were a serif. So I'm not sure where this came from. It's very small in the space, which basically means you've got a lot of negative you have to deal with. And so we placed the negative in here and probably had the opportunity to move a few things around. Like, for instance, what if this were actually down here? And so we didn't have this top and bottom border idea. Because because this really isn't helping the design. But this is a strong figure ground separation, and we understand this as being connected. This reads as white on black. Even with the top border and the bottom border, what we're picking up on, because we don't really see this and this, what we're picking up on is the idea of white figure on black ground. So the composite of these two creates the third. And erase your pencil lines, by the way, if they're not part of the design. If you're not going to use the top shape up here and incorporate that in any way, then don't include a line. So we have still a fairly strong figure ground separation up in here, the darker colors against the white. And even down here, it's the darker colors on the white. And that's because of how the color is distributed. If perhaps this was white and this was black, and maybe this was the light gray and this the dark gray and not the white, and things were redistributed differently, we would be able to create that flatness that we're looking for, that ambiguity, but it does read figure on top of ground. Now remember, in the third panel and in the second panel, the letter form is just a device. We did not need to keep the recognition. You could have designed the first panel with a letter form that was inside out, upside down, and backward, and it would have been fine, because we're basically dealing with the thing as just a shape, and it takes away a lot of choices that you have to make up front, and kind of keeps things simple going forward. So we don't have to keep any semblance of the letter form here. We don't want to keep any semblance of figure ground separation. We want this to be equivocal space, figure ground ambiguity, and we're not quite there. I guess this is meant to be the transparency, the white overlapping the black, so we have the light gray. And this is more of a division. And we have a sense of the white overlapping the gray here. We have a sense of the black and the gray overlapping this area down here. So we do have our three shape relationships. We could have, the better choice would have been to utilize this and not merge it, not create a united shape relationship into a brand new shape. Craft on this isn't bad. There's a few glitchy points. Be sure you don't overcut. When you're cutting into a corner, don't cut into the corner. Start in the corner and then cut away from the corner. And that is in all cases. That's one of the things I talk about a lot in Elements 2, because we have a lot of corners to deal with in developing 3D designs. Also right here, this little kind of glitch, that should have been cut away. It becomes a point that we focus on because we have a sense that it's supposed to be more of a sharp edge. So make sure your blades are sharp. Change them frequently. Okay, here we have an E with serif. And so this becomes an irregular shape because it has straight and curve on the edge. And this gives us one 2, 3, 4, 5 shapes, and they're all here. So this is generally reading as figure, black figure on white ground, and this is also reading as black figure on white ground. Okay, I see what happened here. It looks like you flipped something. So this has this orientation, this has the point up here, and the smaller point here, but you've flipped those. Here's the smaller, and here's the larger. So somehow, when you did the composite, you flipped. In other words, you rotated it like, looks like maybe you just rotated it 180 degrees. So this is not maintaining the integrity of this plus this. So looking at this, the question is, do we have figure ground ambiguity, or do we recognize figure from ground? Well, the ambiguity has pretty much been achieved. We have a sense of division in here. We have a sense of division here. We have division here. We have division here. There's no sense of transparency. If this were the darker gray and this the lighter gray, then the white would be seen as coming in and creating that transparency. But we aren't really getting that. The idea of the two grays overlapping, that's a density, not a transparency issue, and that would require both to be, both grays would be transparent. What we're looking for is a shape, a transparent shape overlapping another one. So we're not looking for density, we're looking for transparency. And it's simulated because we're not working with transparent medium. We are missing that third shape relationship. So the space is equivocated and we have 2 out of 3. When you photograph, make sure that these corners are square with the top and the side and the bottom and the other side. This is photographed at an angle, and so it kind of throws everything off. This is not the way you'd want to, if you were shooting a client something via email, you took a photograph of it, or you're making a presentation in a slide deck, a PowerPoint or something like that. You show them something like this, it's going to look sloppy. Make sure also there's no curl on the corners. That also looks sloppy. So again, think about, this is your time of preparation for actual professional practice. So are you going to work on that sort of thing now and take care of these issues now, or are you going to wait till you finish your master's and then move on into the profession? Okay, here we have a K, and definitely a serif. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I can count. We're good. So what we have here is we can kind of flip this in terms of reading black on white or white on black. First idea is probably we're reading the black and the white ground, so the black figure, white ground, but then we can reverse it and look at the white figure and the black ground. And this is sort of an interesting shape. It has a highly animated quality. It's kind of an opposite to what's going on here. And so when we put both together, we find that we've got this and we have this, and they kind of parallel each other. That diagonal is an implied line that lines up with this, and then we have the same thing echoed. Well, that didn't work. We have the same thing echoed here, and then over here along this axis. And so what happens is that creates unity among all 3 panels. Now, that was not a requirement, but it's something that is going on, and it's kind of interesting to understand that. So the composite in the 3rd panel looks to be integrous with the first 2. And so we are looking for figure ground ambiguity, and it is achieved. We have a sense of transparency where the black appears to overlap the white and create the gray. We have a lot of division. We have the sense of the white overlapping the gray and the gray overlapping the black. So we've got the transparency, the division, and the overlap. Craft on this is pretty good. Things are fit together well. And again, another one with some really meticulous work going on. Things look fairly well put together. Little bit of glitch kind of right up in here. Let me get my other cursor there. Right up in here, the edge could be a bit straighter. But other than that, it's looking pretty good. This was photographed. It was either scanned or photographed under a fluorescent light. So a lot of extra room, top and bottom. The P, definitely serif. And again, we have the straight and curved idea. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 negative shapes, 1, 2, 3, 4, so we're good. So we have this, there's a lot of motion to what's going on here in the second panel because of the repeated diagonal. We're pretty much reading this as black figure on white ground because the white tends to be the framing for the black and not the other way around. It's a lot more difficult to read this as white on black. In fact, it would take a lot of effort to do that. So we're looking at the third panel as the composite of the first two, and we want that to be equivocal space or ambiguous space, and we need those three shape relationships going on. So we have the sense of this being light gray overlapping the black area. It becomes the dark gray. The white overlaps the black, so we have the transparency, we have the overlap. We have another kind of sense of transparency in here, a lot of division going on, division right in here, going from the gray to the black to the white to the gray. The white kind of overlapping the black, creating the gray. That becomes a transparency. This is more of a division up here. So looks like we have a couple instances of each of the three shape relationships. So good design choices. Looks like things are fairly square. And your gutters are even. Your craft overall is pretty good. Things are fit fairly well. So we're getting some knife skills there. So except for being kind of oversized, it's working well. And we'll look at the last one. Okay, we have a B. We can't tell if it is a serif or not because where the serif would be is cut off. So we're going to give the benefit of the doubt. And we have, looks like 5 negative shapes here, upper left to lower right axis. Gives some interesting opportunity for negative shapes. And if you notice the proportion of black to white, there's more white percentage-wise within the overall design space than there is black. So we see that here. There's a greater percentage of the negative black versus the white. So this tends to actually read as white on black because of how the color is distributed, how the shapes are working. There is a nice movement this way, and this is a nice kind of echo of these repeated diagonals. And then it's repeated here. So again, we have another one that's kind of tending to unify across all three panels. And again, that was not a requirement, but it happens sometimes and actually helps bring everything together and creates a tighter relationship between all three panels. So the composite of the first two create the third, and the space here is equivocated. We cannot pick out a single figure. We cannot pick out a figure ground separation at all, looking at the whole idea. Definitely transparency. We've got the lighter gray over the black creating the darker gray. We have division, the light, dark gray to the black to the white. Another idea of transparency there. Division here, transparency there. And then this is overlapping onto the white and overlapping there. So we've got our three shape relationships working, and again, craftsmanship is pretty good. I know that the paper, the Canson paper, or any kind of cover stock, it's very fibrous. It is not the easiest to work with. It's a good medium to work with, and will definitely get you to drill down on your hand skills with the blades. So again, pretty good. Everything is fitting together well. So good showing overall. And we actually looked at all the work that was submitted on this assignment. So everybody's was included here, so you won't be getting anything with any comments in the gradebook. Thanks for watching.